Okay, now we're going to graph cosine with some transformations. The good news is the cosine transformations are very similar to the sine transformations. If you notice, if you watched any of the extra videos yesterday, you saw that they did a cosine equation in a couple of videos, or at least one. Also, you may have noticed like we're still in the same section. That's because these are very similar. Okay, so we're going to follow the same steps as we did yesterday. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the period. And for cosine, you find the period the same way as you did sine. You're going to say, well, my period is 2 pi over whatever my b value is. And remember, it is a times the trig function, and then b times x. And so in this case, your period is 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. Let's go ahead and put that down here. And then we are going to put this on the graph and split it into 4 equal parts. So, and actually, if you're graphing, let's do this a little differently. If you're graphing on just a sheet of paper, you don't have a grid, then the best thing to do is to go out and put the 4th spot. That's 1 period, and then you can get a better sense of how far apart your tick marks can be, because you can go halfway and put a tick mark, and then halfway and put a tick mark, and then halfway between the last two and put a tick mark. Okay, then you can just start with your period and say this is pi, and then we're going to cut pi in half. So half of pi, which if you want to find half of something, just multiply it times 1/2. But half of pi is pi over 2. And then half of pi over 2, we're going to multiply it times 1/2, is pi over 4. And then we need 3/4 of pi. If we want to find 3/4 of something, just multiply it by 3/4. You might be able to do this one in your head, but you get 3 pi over 4. Okay, so that's our period, and then we could label our tick marks. Now we're going to find the amplitude, which is the same. It's the absolute value of a, same as sine. So we'll find the amplitude. In this case, a is 3. Capital A for amplitude. Remember, amplitude is always positive. Let's go ahead and put this up here, and down here we'll put this as 3 and -3. And then this negative sign in front here is going to reflect the graph over the x-axis. Let's just make a note of that. And now we're ready to sketch our curve. So to draw this, you have to know what the graph of cosine looks like. So if this were not reflected, we would start up at 0, 3, and have a point here, and then come down here, and then we'd have a point at the bottom in the middle here. But because this is reflected, we have to flip all this over. Actually, let's go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and draw the curve without the reflection, and I'll just erase it. So this is the curve without the negative sign. That's just y equals 3 cosine 2x. So it's got the same shape as cosine. It goes through 0, and then whatever the amplitude is where it starts, or it starts at this maximum, then goes down and around. Now because it's reflected, we're going to have to flip that over. And so the points on the top and bottom will leave, but notice the points on the origin stay. Or sorry, not the origin, but the x-axis, because if you reflect the point over on the axis, it stays on the axis. So instead of at the maximum, you just start at the minimum, and then go through the full cycle. And so your curve will look something like that. Okay, we can go ahead and set our amplitude over here. We forgot to write that down. So that's 3. And then our domain, this graph goes forever. This is just 1 period. It's 1 cycle. It repeats this cycle over and over again. So our domain is all real numbers. and our range goes from -3 to 3. So it's from low to high is -3 to 3.